Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic peeps, to my channel, Slime and Slashers, where, yeah, we talk about everything from Nickelodeon slime to horror movie slashers, but plenty of stuff in between, including books. And yes, today is another book-themed video. I don't know why I sang like an opera person. Yes! Today is another book-themed video. We will be talking about not only my top 10, but my top 10 plus an extra 10 that I want to read for the Read What You Own challenge. Everyone's doing a top 10 priority list for their challenge, you know, the 10 books they want to get to. Of course, me, I have to be extra and add on another 10 to the top 10 that everyone's doing. So here's my top 20 right after this short intro. So stay right where you are, we'll go to the short intro, we'll come back, and we'll get into my top 20 priority books for the Read What You Own challenge. I don't know why that makes me a weightlifter, but you know, read what you own. You're strong. You can do it. We can all do it if you're doing the challenge. Let's go. Short intro. Woo! Welcome back, guys! That intro was unhinged, but whatevs. Thanks for sticking with me if you're still here. Thank you. Alright, let's go through some priority reads for... It's gonna end up going through not only the rest of this year, my challenge, but into the next year. So Read What You Own. The challenge was begun by Ollie from Criminali. I don't know why I said his name so epically. I'm obviously very hyper. Anyway, I really treasure Ollie. He's got a great channel. I'm a Patreon supporter of him. He is just a fantastic booktuber, and if you aren't following him, please do so. I will link him down below. Also, other peeps are involved in the challenge, like my good friend Crystal from the channel Fiber Artsy. She is just an amazing person, and you also should be following her if you aren't already. Lots of other people in the booktube universe, they're doing the challenge as well. My friend Andrew from It Came From The Page, not to shame him, but he was doing the challenge, and then he's like, yo, I failed. Yeah, I can buy books. But I'm just kidding. He actually said he might keep going with the challenge anyway. To me, I'm going to give myself the exception of being able to buy used books if I go to an out-of-state used bookstore, or if I'm at a used bookstore and there's an insane, crazy old school book. I'm going to give myself permission to buy the book, but still do the challenge. My main goal is to not buy any new books from Amazon. So no new reads. I have enough new reads. I'm really a vintage horror collector. There's really no need to freaking buy all these books when I can get a lot of these newer books from the library, or I can get the audio from Scribd, which I'm using audio more now anyway. So I'd rather just concentrate on collecting older books and try to stop myself and freaking, you know, not go crazy and buy all these new books, because sometimes I'll go on Amazon, I'm like, oh, I want that book, and they're all newer books. Amazon newer books are kind of like the thing I tend to go towards, you know, during the week when I just am browsing on the internet, and I'm like, oh yeah. I usually just get vintage books, you know, not online, but at bookstores, so there's really no temptation there every week, in and out, like there are temptations on Amazon with these new books, so... That is the reasoning behind everything and what I want to accomplish. My goal right now is to read at least 50 books I own before I buy any new books, but really I'd like to get to 100, because you can't see it in this room, but in the other room there's tons of new books, and I say new as in not new releases, but newer, anything from, I don't know, 2010 onwards to now. So I've got a lot of those books in the other room. I keep my vintage books in here where I can control, you know, leaving the window closed. In every other room in the house, the windows get opened and things get exposed more to the elements. Here I can control things better in my office, so that's why the vintage books stay in here, and that's why I have them separated like that. But let's get into the books. I do have a couple of vintage books that are on my list for Read What You Own, and I think that's what we're going to start with. So, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, first up, a book that has been on my TBR for like literally 2.5 to 3 years, Book to Die. This is more of a mystery type of book. I've heard a lot about it, and it just seems like a really fun premise. Any kind of books dealing with books I'm kind of a sucker for that theme. I really like that.
Tough book-loving Denver homicide detective Cliff Janeway wants to nail Jackie Newton, a suspected psychopath who just barely beat the rap for a series of vagrant killings. Janeway is certain his sleazy, sadistic nemesis is to blame for the recent murder of a down-and-out rare book hunter, and treats Newton to a rather brutal helping of off-duty justice that ultimately costs the overzealous cop his badge. A civilian once more, Cliff Janeway now has time to pursue his true passion, the buying and selling of valuable first editions, and to get to the bottom of the unfortunate book scout's still unsolved slaying. For somewhere undercover in the bizarre cutthroat world of bookmen and collectors, someone is dealing death, along with vintage Chandlers and Twains.
Another vintage book, here we have Dream House by Douglas Borton. I heard this is ball to the walls, bonkers crazy. That's why it's on my freaking priority list, because I want to get to it. There is no audiobook, so putting it on a list like this will help me prioritize it a little bit more. Also, I did read another book by Douglas Borton, and it was fantastic. It's called Death Song. I had such a ball. It was also balls to the walls, bonkers. Is that my new phrase? I guess for this video, it is. But yeah, if this book is anything like that book, then I'm truly looking forward to this book so much, if it's going to measure up to how I felt about Death Song. So I can't wait, and it's definitely a priority. A big goal of mine for 2024 will be to read more books by Mark Morris. So really, this book could be any book by Mark Morris, but I chose this one, Mr. Badface, and I'm really excited. I'm going to try to make this a priority, but there's quite a few. Actually, I have a whole shelf of Mark Morris books that I bought this year, a lot of them, and I really would like to get to any of the ones on the shelf. So if it just doesn't happen to be this one, but as long as it's Mark Morris, I'm going to count it as completing this book on the list, because even if it's not this particular book, as long as it's a Mark Morris, I'm fine with it. And yeah, he's a great author. Here we have a non-horror book. We have more of a middle grade book. This is The Never Ending Story, and of course it's a translated book. This is the book that the movie The Never Ending Story is based on, and I love the movie so much. So I am announcing it here. This is going to end up being my official book club book for the month of April. I'm bringing back my readathon and watchathon event called Old School April. It will be going on all month long. Please join us. And if you joined us last year, then it's only going to get bigger and better this upcoming year. And yes, for my book club, I didn't have a book club read last year, I don't think, but this year I definitely want to have The Never Ending Story as my book club read, because I think it would be thematic, definitely fits with the old school vibe, because it's a great old school movie, and I'd love to get to the book and see how much more in depth the book goes than the movie. Here's a book I plan on reading in the next month, for December of 2023. This is Nightwing, and it's an old school vintage book about vampire bats. I'm really pumped to get to it. It actually matches a prompt for my Patreon only readathon I'm doing in December. One of our prompts is to read a book set during summer, and this is definitely set during the hotter months, so I'm excited to have an excuse. I started it earlier this year, just didn't get a chance to finish it, so now I have an excuse to dig back into it and cross another book off of my Read What You Own challenge list. A book that I was supposed to read this year for my 23 books in 2023, the Paperback from Hell list that I had two lists of 23 books to read in 2023, and I didn't get to this one. However, it's a book I really want to get to. I love coming of age. It's one of my favorite subgenres of not only horror, but of just general fiction, and I need to get to this one. It's a famous one, and I think it's really well known and really popular and really famous for a reason, because it's probably really well written and really entertaining. So gotta get to it. I love this old school copy that my friend Kelly gave me. You can find Kelly at Kelly Hooked on Books. Thank you so much for this copy, Kelly. I also have a new edition, which I would probably read when I go to actually pick the book up, because I don't want to damage the copy Kelly gave me. So I'll just use my new edition, but I really am happy to own this old school edition. I have not yet read a book by Skip Inspector. This is the one I want to start with. I actually already own it on audio because I bought it on Audible, I don't know, 5 months ago, maybe 6 months ago. This is The Light at the End, and I think it has to do with vampires roaming around, like, the subways of New York. Let's see, yeah, isolated subway tunnel, yeah. And I heard it's crazy. If you don't know about the authors Skip Inspector, they are very famous for making the splatterpunk subgenre very popular and kind of making it a thing. It wasn't really a thing before they started writing, so very eager to get to my first book written by them, and I hope there'll be many more to come because I own a lot of their books, so it's going to be a great time if I enjoy this one to keep going with more of their books. So, yay! I can't wait to see what I think. I also plan on reading more by Robert McCammon in the next year. So, this one is high up on my priority list. This is mine. It's more of a thriller. So, a lot of people would put him in the horror category for some reason. And I really don't think a lot of his books fit in with horror. Boy's Life, not a horror book in my opinion. It's more of like a fiction book with magical elements. Gone South, a book I read by him recently and really enjoyed, I think that's more of a thriller. My friend Andrew and I buddy read Wolf's Hour together earlier this year. I thought that was more of a thriller with historical elements. So this, I've heard, is also more of a thriller. So I'm really eager to get to this one. I hear it's very tense, and a woman's daughter gets kidnapped, and I believe she has to kind of go after her daughter, who is kidnapped by a very bad man.
Across a landscape of terror, a desperate mother battles a human monster to save her baby.
Look at this old school copy. Yes. Here we go. If you know me, you might have expected to see Richard Lehman on this list. I really like Richard Lehman. And yeah, is it weird to say that you're a fan of Richard Lehman? Some people think it is, yeah, that's fine with me. I don't mind the rumps. Come on, bring on the rumps. In fact, I am making next year the year of Lehman, and I will be reading a Richard Lehman book every single month of the year. So I'm super pumped. I might start with this one. This was sent to me by my friend Andrew. Thank you so much, Andrew. So I'm so eager to get to this one, and spoiler alert, because I haven't made my goals list for next year, but I told you already, I'm going to do the year of Lehman. Not only will I do a year of his books, I will also have a jar to help me pick out which book that I read every single month. And it's going to be not just a regular old boring jar, it's going to be a rump jar. Literally, it'll have a rump on the jar. You'll see. I already have it figured out, and I'm so excited. Why rumps? If you don't know about Richard Lehman, you might be confused. Well, let me tell you. Richard Lehman, he writes a lot of sexual stuff into his books. A lot of his stuff, you're like, what? This is unhinged. This is weird. I don't know how to feel about this. I feel uncomfortable. Yes, he also uses the word rump quite a bit. It is what it is. All of his characters, they're also over-sexualized. It's the facts. I can't help it. And yet somehow I still find his books wildly entertaining. So I'm sticking with it. I'm doing the year of Lehman, and I'm not scared. I'm excited, actually. So the rump jar, because he says rump a lot, will be in honor of my boy Richard Lehman. There's something seriously wrong with me. Oh god. Here's the 10th book on my list. This is Grim Memorials by R. Patrick Gates. I've heard that R. Patrick Gates, who's a vintage writer, specifically vintage horror writer, they have crazy books. Like, apparently, their books are bonkers. This one just sounded so intriguing to me. I was looking up some obscure titles. I wanted to find some, like, hidden gems, like vintage horror, vintage gems. And this one came up in the list when I was researching. It says,
Far from the concrete and steel of Boston, the town of Northwood nestles beneath the summit of Mount Sugarloaf. The quiet community seems like the perfect place for Steve and Diane to raise their family of 2 children, with a third on the way. Their new home is perched on the edge of a forest. A trail through the woods leads to an old Victorian mansion that once housed the town mortuary, but the memories of the dearly departed are the least of what lurks there. Eleanor Grimm is a woman of desperate cunning, possessing unfathomable power. Driven by the enchantments found in fairy tales, she has bewitched the parents of Northwood, keeping them spellbound and distracted from her true agenda, claiming the most innocent of souls. For more than 50 years, she has been spiriting away Northwood's children, and now she has her sights set on Naylor's son and daughter.
yep, another vintage book. This is Monastery by Patrick Whalen. I've heard great things about this when I was researching vintage books. It has a decent rating on Goodreads, which is super rare for a vintage title. So that has me intrigued. Also, it's available on ebook, so I can get a Kindle copy if I don't want to mess up my book. It already has tape on it, but I still don't want to mess it up further, because I really like this creepy statue cover. There's blood coming from his mouth. It says,
Those that are here will become as us. Those that come here will meet the same fate. Nothing can stop us, nothing. There's an island 26 miles off the coast of Washington State, a solitary place of windswept cliffs and brooding skies, a place where a godforsaken abbey stands sentry over an ancient unholy secret. Long ago, 2 priests took a vow in blood, a vow to silence forever the evil entombed below. Today the guardians are gone, and with a promise forged in hell, the madness is beginning again.
I actually have a new edition of this, so I won't be reading my vintage copy, but I wanted to show you my vintage copy. Someone gifted me, they contacted Valancourt Books and gifted me a whole bunch of Elizabeth Engstrom books, so that is why I'm putting this book on my priority list. I'd like to get to more Engstrom books, but definitely this one, because I like how it's a standalone. The other one, When Darkness Loves Us, it's a collection of 2 different stories in one, and I'd rather read like a full-length novel. So I'm going to be digging into this one. Thank you to whoever mysteriously sent me the Elizabeth Engstrom books from Valancourt Books. Thank you so much. I really thought that was so sweet, and I wish I knew who you were so I could thank you properly, but if you're out there, thank you. And I'm really happy to finally be getting to this and make it a priority for this challenge. And I think this is about vampires, but it's not your standard typical vampire story. So I cannot wait to see what this book holds for me. Alright, and another vintage book, The House Next Door by Anne Rivers Seidens. This is actually going to be featured in a vlog for a special project I'm doing next year, and that's why I thought it'd be great to also put it on this priority list, because I really want to read it no matter what. This book will also be featured in a vlog for a special project next year. I haven't revealed it yet. I'll be revealing it in my 2024 goals video, I'm sure. And I'm really excited. I've been putting this off forever. I've had this edition for a long time. This is the Books of Blood, Volume 1 through 3. And it's time I get to it. I cannot wait to finally dig in. It's really been too long. I've got to get to this. It's just, I've been procrastinating for some reason. But yeah, I'm excited. Alright, and now we have not as many vintage books. Now it's more kind of like newer books, more of like the 2000s for the most part. This is a brand new book that I bought, and I really want to get to it because I read a book by Andrew Van Wey this year called Head Like a Hole, and I freaking loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It had so many elements that I enjoyed in it. This cover looks a lot like the one from Head Like a Hole. That cover is very similar to this one. So this is By the Light of Dead Stars, and it definitely seems cosmic and weird. And I've discovered this year that I like weird horror and I like cosmic horror, so bring it on, bitch! I can't have too much of it. I am excited to see if this is as good as Head Like a Hole. I hope it is, because I love that book so much. Next up, Night Film. I've heard great things about this from my friend Crystal and from Haley as well. Check out her channel. I'll link both channels below. And I've just been really intrigued by this. Of course, any kind of book that deals with film or the film industry kind of intrigues me, so this deals with that. It says,
Ashley Cordova, the mysterious gifted daughter of the reclusive film director Stanislas Cordova, is found dead in an abandoned warehouse in Lower Manhattan. Her death is ruled a suicide, but veteran investigative journalist Scott McGrath suspects otherwise. What happened to Ashley? As McGrath tries to uncover the truth, he is drawn into a spellbinding quest in the underworld of the Cordova family's life. With breakneck pace and dazzling inventiveness, Night Film will hold you in suspense until you turn the final page.
yes, can't wait. Here we have a book that was actually released in the early 2000s. I'm so excited to get to this. I have seen both film adaptations, and I'll be getting to this one sooner rather than later because it is on my December TBR. And I'm just super pumped because I've loved the movies, and I've heard really fantastic things about this book from a multitude of people. And my Patreon members, 2 different ones, suggested that I read this book. So I'm here for it, and I'm ready. The next book on my priority list is Devil's Creek by Todd Kessling. I read earlier this year the book Scanlines by Todd Kessling and really adored it. It was super dark, but it was so well written. It was a very good time in terms of how well written it was, how enjoyable it was, how tense it was. I wouldn't say it's enjoyable in terms of the content in it because it's very, very, as I said, dark, super dark. And I would look up trigger warnings if you're intrigued by that. But I have been wanting to get to this for a while. In fact, I bought this book before I heard of or owned Scanlines, so I think I should read this one since I liked that one so much, but I actually had bought that one more recently than this one. This one's been sitting on my shelves much longer, and that is why I'm making it a priority to get to it. Not on this list, but another book for some reason that reminds me of this book, because I always had them sitting together on the shelf, is The Descent by Jeff Long, I think. I'll put a picture. I want to get to that too. It's not on this official list, but if I could squeeze that one in as part of my 50 or 100 Read What You Own books, I'd love to do that too. But for some reason, I always associate the books together because I know I had them on the same shelf for a very long time, and I don't know. When I think of this book, I think of that one. When I think of that one, I think of this one. I guess because they were side by side. It's weird. I don't know. It makes no sense. But yeah, I'd love to get to that one too. Just a random general shout out Shout out to The Descent. I actually saw The Descent recently, and that's why it came back into my mind. I saw it in the background of one of my friend Amy's videos. Again, check out her channel, she'll be linked below. But I was like, oh my god, The Descent, I own that book. I should get to it. And I should ask Amy if she's already read it, and if that's why it's in her background, because I was like, is that prominently placed because she read it and liked it? Or is it just randomly there? So, Amy, let me know. I want to know. I'm curious. If you haven't read it, we could read it together, but if you have already read it, then I'd love to know what you thought about it. Just curious. But yeah, that's not even the book on my list right now. Even though if I could make a last-minute honorable mention, it would be the honorable mention. But this is the book officially on the list. But yeah, I'd like to get to both. Alright, and the last two books on the list, they're both Irish-themed, and I'm definitely going to try to read these in March of next year, because every year I like to do a thematic week of Irish reading. I might even extend it for 2 weeks. I might do 2 weeks of weird reading and 2 weeks of Irish reading, we'll see. But both of these sound really, really good. In fact, I'm playing around with making Knock Knock Open Wide a book club pick for the month of March, but I haven't officially decided yet. If it gets an audiobook, then it's definitely going to be prioritized as a possible book club read. However, there is no audiobook as of right now, but I can't see it not having an audiobook by next year. We'll see, we'll see. March isn't that far away, I guess, whatevs. Alright, so this says, it's just a blurb, it's not the description, but Irish mythology melds with family damage and a decidedly contemporary love story in this deftly told novel, circling around one of the most terrifying versions of a child's TV program in fiction. Knock Knock Open Wide has a remarkable ability to reveal the cracks in reality that, if we're not careful, we can be pushed through, landing in a darker-hued reality that huddles snarling breath. Huh. This sounds great. I'm really pumped. Yeah, it does take place in the Irish countryside. And then later, 2 decades later, some of it takes place in Dublin, which I've been to Dublin, so yes, yes, bitch, yes. I am excited about this. And the other Irish book I held up, and the last book I'll be talking about today, is Where I End by Sophie White. I was kindly recommended this book by one of my viewers. She also has an awesome channel. I will link that below. But I had never heard of this book before, and the way they described it just sounded so good. So here it says,
At night my mother creaks, the house creaks along with her. Aileen?
I'm probably not saying that right. Is that an Irish name? I'm saying it terribly. I'm an Irish freaking fan that's an imposter fan of Ireland, because I can't even say this Irish name right. Anyway, Aileen? I wish I could... I don't know.
She has never left the island. Her silent bedbound mother is the survivor of a private disaster no one will speak about. She desperately wants a family, and when artist Rachel and her baby move to the island, Island finds a focus for her relentless love.
But it's also like a dark ghost story, I've heard. If I stack the books on top of each other, they like reach me and I'm sitting down on the ground, but yeah, they reach to my chin, kind of. I have to stoop down, but it's pretty tall of a stack. I can't even lift it up to show you. Even just the paperbacks alone, freaking very tall. I have more paperbacks, obviously, on this list than I do newer horror. And I say paperbacks, you know, I mean old school, mass market, paperback from hell paperbacks, but yes. Alright guys, that was my list of 20 priorities. Are you participating in the Read What You Own challenge? Are you scared as hell, like me? Because I am scared about this challenge. It's going to be a beast to accomplish, but I'm excited because I should be reading what I own. I bought all these books for a reason. It's time to get to them. So I'm excited about this challenge, you know? I am intimidated, I won't lie, but we can all band together and be a support system for each other. So, what are you planning on reading? What are you most excited to read that you own? Let me know down below. Do we have any books in common? Buddy read anybody? I doubt it. I mean, who has any of these old school books on their list? I don't know. If any of these books intrigue you and you want to do a buddy read, let me know. But otherwise, I'd love to hear anything you want to comment about below. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch my unhinged videos. Thank you so much. It means so much to me that you take your time to get unhinged with me, or just watch me get unhinged, I guess, but whatevs. Anyway, alright guys, but for this time, that is it for me. Till next time, you guys know what you can do. Keep on killing it. Bye guys!